Mr. Chair, thank you so much. Council members, Mayor, Treasurer Busher, Clerk Lesko, we want to thank you for this time. First of all, I want to extend kudos as well to Clerk Lesko and Rex in the office. We kind of pushed them to the limit this afternoon with some late-minute presentations, so I wanted to apologize, but thank you for your patience and your help with us moving forward on this.
Thank you. You're always a pleasure to work with.
So, thank you, Frank. So first of all, first slide is looking at the structure of our office. Looking across, we have administration, community relations, corporation counsel, deputy mayor, under which falls boards and commissions, and communications. Under the deputy mayor falls the boards and commissions, and we have those listed that have a budget. Most of those are for attending meetings or performances. And then under communications, we'll be getting to that a little bit more in just a few minutes. Looking at our workforce, going all the way back to FY13, you can see that we had 31 employees this year, and we are budgeting for 28 and a half in FY19. First of all, looking at some of the accomplishments across the board, under the deputy mayor, much thanks to you guys and also to all of our regional planning commission, the commissioners on our Planning Commission Steering Committee. We passed our first comprehensive land use plan in almost 20 years, and we will be working toward the implementation phase of that in this coming year, which I think will be great for the city, for development, and for improving our city. Under boards and commissions, we have almost 30 boards, commissions, and councils, and we have, in the last 2.5 years, been working to get that information added to the city website. We're continuing to work on that just to make everything more open and transparent so everyone can see what's going on. And then also the Mayor's Youth Council. This is the first time in a couple of administrations that we have reignited the Mayor's Youth Council, and we are working with students from each of the high schools in District 186 as well as the private high schools. And it's been very interesting as they share their vision of their hometown and of Springfield. They have a very positive outlook on what Springfield is, and we've been asking them, what is going to bring you back? What's the positives? If you go away to school, why would you come back? And they're very open. Young people love Springfield, and we just need to build on that and keep it moving. So that's been very positive, and we will be bringing forth some other things toward the end of the school year. So Juan?
Good evening. I want to share some of the accomplishments that the Office of Community Relations did in 2017. First of all, the ADA, American with Disability Plan, was in compliance with the Department of Justice, was published in the city website.
Excuse me, Juan, I don't think your mic
That
is
mic's not on.
Oh, it's not.
I think he needs to pull it closer.
No, that his.
Pull it closer.
It has to be really close.
That one's not on. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. And here's some of the accomplishments by the Springfield Office of Community Relations in 2017. First of all, the American with Disability Plan was in compliance with the Department of Justice. The plan was published in the City of Springfield website. And also last December, we had a hearing at the library in which citizens can come over and give us feedback on the plan. The Disability Commission is doing a really good job. They've been a big help and have great knowledge. Secondly, we plan and organize the administration of 2017-18, the Warming Center shelters, which we house between 50 and 55 people every night. Our office address 1,164 landlord-tenant disputes. One of the things that I'm proud about the office that we accomplished 100% in compliance with the Equal Employment Opportunity, the EOC. Last summer, we assisted with the 8-week youth summer program at Salvation Army. We had over 230 youth. One of the things that the mayor wanted to interact with my office was the Springfield Railroad project. We get a lot of phone calls from the citizens about different stage of the project. Sometimes when they have questions about are they going to buy my house, how much is my house worth, and those type of things. I work very closely with Hanson Engineering, and so we're able to provide customer service to the city. And also with customer service, we take a lot of customer service in my office to be able to direct people to the right department with the city, state, or the federal government. Another thing that we did in 2017 was we created a reentry employment list for the community. And also we continue to participate in many community outreach in the community.
Yeah, that's you.
Just very briefly, Corporation Council's budget, I think, is down from last year about a little more than 1%, and just projected through the end of the year is less than it was the year before in terms of just actual year end. And we typically don't spend all that we are budgeted, trying to be somewhat, at least keep things to what are absolutely necessary. We did end up cutting one position, one attorney position, trying to keep in measure with the needs of just everything that's going on. And just kind of very briefly, I wanted to just talk a little bit about kind of what we do with, obviously, the ordinances. I think it's showing 459 that were prepared and reviewed through the office with all the attendant paperwork, contracts and so on. 44 ordinances relating to zoning changes, and then just the typical. I do have a list of pending cases, more serious cases that we can talk about either individually, away from this meeting, or perhaps in executive session, because they range from federal claims, state claims, and of a pretty wide variety. And we continue to resolve or address risk management cases, and those are the typical small trip and fall, a tree limb falls. You'd be surprised at the number of police and fire vehicles that bump into each other or bump into other cars. Those are all risk cases where there's a car claim. Normal workers' comp, we have an outside counsel that works on those, that we coordinate that process. And then, of course, labor and contract negotiations. We do all of the, for example, labor arbitrations and all the attendant litigation relating to labor and discrimination matters and so on. And among the list, just very briefly again, we have cases that have gone up to the 7th Circuit. In fact, one will be up with the group housing case. I think it's February 8th in Chicago in the 7th Circuit. We've had 2 full jury trials, one in the federal court, one in the state court, all in the last 90 days, tried to verdict in front of a jury, both in the city's favor. And we routinely handle just the routine claims and so on against the city, which are a pretty wide variety, everything from issues with the coal contract to issues relating to Sierra Club with the ash ponds, to issues relating to the gentleman who was injured on the Old State Capitol Square with some of the equipment there and so on. So just a wide range of activities. And the next 2 are just, again, just briefly, all of you know Todd, and basically business licensing, and this is just the money that comes in vis-a-vis the one back, there you go. Business licensing activities, through liquor, taxi, and video, and that's all through Todd's office. He basically supervises the licensing, talks to all the individual applicants, and this doesn't include all of the licenses, but it keeps he and Carla busy constantly if you've ever talked to Todd. And then just talking briefly with code enforcement, and this is for calendar year, not actually fiscal year, but calendar year 2017. In the AC division, 1,467 cases were actually filed, initiated. There are 179 demolition cases that are pending in various stages. And one of the things I did want to just briefly highlight to everybody is that part of the budget process, we have 83 that have been referred of unsafe and dangerous structures, that there's no money to address them. So they're basically being held These are ones that are referred to. How that process works is from Public Works, the inspectors go out, they do a 6-point inspection, they refer to legal for action for demolition, condemnation and demolition. And because of the budget process, the Public Works Department, I think there's funding, and someone can correct me on this, but what I was told was that there was a budget for doing 30 this year. In the past, we've done 60 or 70 a year. And so that's going to be one point of concern. We do not want to get a demolition order, then not be able to follow through where it sets a year or two for funding. So we literally have to be very careful on how we proceed. But these are all initiated by Public Works to Corporation Council, then goes through this system. There are a total of 490 small claims that were filed in 2017. And then one of the interesting statistics, and several of the aldermen have actually, we've talked about this individually, is in 2017, the city, through the process of the demolition lien and foreclosure, because we do complete foreclosure actions, on our liens and so on, and the city has literally acquired in 2017 69 properties, lots that have been demolished. The structures have been demolished, and through that process, now the city now owns those. And one of the going forward items is, because we have, I think, in excess of about 200 and some now, will be policy decisions on the part of the council. How do we recycle those? And so those 69 were acquired through the normal foreclosure process. And then Code Enforcement Division then also collected $308,000. Basically, they're in fines. And keep in mind that, as an example, when code enforcement files, the primary purpose is to get compliance. In other words, it's not trying to get fines, it's trying to get people to do what they're supposed to do. And I would say more than half the cases end up where once they're served, then compliance occurs, therefore they're dismissed. And that's the first goal of the city. It's not trying to collect $100 or $200, it's trying to get people to do that process. And the way that check and balance works is that the Public Works inspectors go and verify compliance. In other words, that's this Corporation Council's code enforcement uses the inspectors as witnesses. So they're the ones who go and inspect, take pictures, do all of that activity. And just areas of concern, just by way of mentioning, is one would be the issue about demolitions that we talked about just briefly, and I just wanted to mention that. We continue to have an issue that we're working on the computer system, which is still problematic. And what that is for the docketing system, because we literally have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases. And then the issue about retention, because we have had a pretty significant turnover with young attorneys. And what's happening is that we will have them for a year or less, and then they'll end up getting recruited like the Attorney General's office. I think we've sent a few attorneys over there, so I mentioned that in passing, and we are working on that. So those were the main highlights, and I do again have detail on the more serious cases, but it's we can talk either in executive session or one-on-one. And these are ones that go like to our auditors. We have to provide a list of litigation to the auditors of status of cases and that sort of thing.
Good evening. On to communications. I oversee 2 AV techs who run our Channel 4 and Channel 18, so you often see them out at events. So for this past year, the AV studio in 2017, we did do the audio upgrades that included some the muting, the new mics, some of the closed captioning, in addition to we did add some cameras that can do dual purpose with photography as well, so to take some of that in-house instead of having to spend that money. We did start streaming Channel 18, including live streaming, so budget workshops. Any events held in the council chambers can now be watched live. We've done various videos and programs for Channel 18 and 4, including the Shop Local campaign over the holiday. We partnered with Local First and Midwest Family Broadcasting to really highlight some business videos and things that are going on in the city. And we also started a new partnership with Benedictine University to start promoting Access 4 programming along with storytelling. That just started a couple weeks ago. The first class is tomorrow night. The demand was high enough that we maxed out on our first session, and they added a second session starting February 15th. So they said moving forward, they definitely think that that can be an ongoing class. I also assist with marketing across various departments, including the police, fire, HR, public works. I was heavily involved with a lot of the recruiting that HR was doing for tested positions, and helped for the police, fire, electrical apprentice, fireman, and oiler, doing recruiting videos, news releases, social media, postcards, posters, etc. We did do the third round of ward meetings. We're in the process. We have compiled for each ward and each alderman all 3 years, so everybody will get a spreadsheet. We're just going through to make sure it's all updated so you can see what was done and what was the issues 2015, 2016, 2017, and see if there's anything still outstanding. We did launch the community text alerts with the Springfield Police. We're still working through some issues, but so far we started really doing it up more in January, and it seems to be working successfully. I also oversee the city's website. We redid the police website. I'm happy to say it's all done by our ISD department, so we don't have any funds that are going out for that. So we want to focus on economic development this year, along with Oak Ridge and some other departments, to give a more robust, a more robust online presence. And then electronic communications, I do oversee the Springfield Twitter handle, Facebook, and our neighborhood associations. We started the neighborhood associations after the ward meetings. We keep adding about 1,000 followers a year, which is nice on Twitter. Also on Facebook, we have a steady growth. I did have to throw in that the most popular was Ward 10's Roundabout. It was seen by about over 175,000 people. I'm happy to say that none of the audiences, we don't pay for likes or anything of that nature. So this is all purely organic reaches. And the neighborhood associations, we did start off with about 41 neighborhood associations in 2015. That was a new program, so we see a steady increase, so it seems like that will be working.
So now looking at the hardcore numbers, excuse me, across all 4 of the offices, you can see that our budget overall is down about 3.35%. Looking at the next page, the next slide, you can see that as far as personal services, we're looking at a decrease in that area, perhaps taking 3 employees to half-time. The contractual services with all the 120 lines that we have, we're continually looking at those and to right-size those, just as Corporation Counsel Zirkle mentioned a few minutes ago. The only increase is with is with EDP, and again, that's as dictated by our Information Systems Technology Department across the board, that for increased security across the city as far as our website goes. So with that, we'll open it up for any questions.
That's better. Thank you all. Is yours working, huh? That's working. Use that
Do not tap the microphone.
Tony will come up here.
Do not tap the microphone.
Yep, you can use the handheld one now. Which one? You can use the handheld.
Which one, please?
So are there any questions for any of us?
Alderman Tyler.
I go back to something that we brought up before. Page 1, the municipal band numbers. Hearing from constituents from the last conversation we publicly had about this, a lot of the constituents who've been calling me have said, as Alderman Turner said, that we should do everything we can to try to continue having the municipal band. But they also feel that if the city council and the mayor is asking for an increase in taxes and an increase in fees and cutting services, that the city should do everything they can to try to reach out and find some corporate sponsors to offset the band.
I will mention that we do have donations that come in. We've had tremendous support over the years from the Staub family. They do a lot to support our community outreach. I think since FY11 that we've received over $50,000 for the band. Last year, Shields contributed over $1,000 as well to the Muni band. So we do get contributions. It's not a total fulfillment, but we do have that community input coming in as well.
I've probably had this conversation a dozen times. I tell them that The budget's right around $50,000. It's $56,965. And that, if they know of any businesses that are interested, to call the mayor's offices.
Alderman Hanauer?
Jim, you mentioned that we've got currently over 200 lots that the city owns, either through liens and demolitions and whatnot. Don't you we really probably need to work on getting those back sold either to like neighbors of lots or whatever, because that's some tax money. I realize that these vacant lots aren't gonna bring in a lot of money, but it's still, right now we're having to pay to get them mowed and upkeep, where I think we really need to really push to get those off our inventory.
What I was going to just say is you're exactly right. The two or three commentaries. Typically the city has the reason we start getting to liens and demolitions because
Mr. Zirkle, could you please speak into the mic? Thank you.
Sorry, is that better? Apologize.
Thank you.
The reason that we get to the point of actual demolition or foreclosure on liens and Alderman Donnelly would know this very well, but the process is that it's typically because the owners just stop taking care of it. So unfortunately, the city's in a position, whether we own it or not, typically we are doing mowing and different things like that to the lot of the lots. However, that being said, with lots that the city acquires, one of the priorities need to be, and the mayor has been working on this through OPED, to come up with complete strategies to start really using them, whether like on a more narrow lot, maybe letting the neighbor buy it. And I think 15 or 20 letters I believe we've received already on the first set of the lots. And so yes, it has to be a priority, because what's happening, our problem is this, that if we do nothing, then the county, I would just tell you this, the county will, if they end up acquiring them, will not take care of them. We'll be right back mowing them again. And so the county administrator, once they're sold for taxes, once all that process happens, that's typically how we end up either through foreclosure or through the lien process of acquiring the lots, simply because they've almost basically been abandoned. But you're exactly right there. We need to have a very strong policy on recycling those.
And then a couple items. One is Alderman Proctor's brought it up with regards to the land bank, and we did apply for a grant. I don't think we received the information back yet to get assistance with establishing that. We're come up with a strategy, help us move in that direction. But the other thing we can do is put those listing of lots online. And then anybody that is interested, they need to submit a letter to the Office of Planning and Economic Development, and basically say, what the offer is, what they intend to do with the property, and we'd make that determination. That would have to come back before City Council for approval.
I have
several
people that are interested in buying the lot next to them, because a lot of them mow it anyway, as I'm sure Alderman Turner's can allude to. And they've gone through the process. They've called down to Economic Development, and they don't get any answers.
Me too. Same situation.
What I was going to say is you'll start seeing some, because, for example, I think it's in cycle for the Isles House wants the lot next to them.
Correct.
And probably the ordinance will be going forward on that probably at this next cycle. And then also, I believe Springfield Clinic identified one that we really recently just got something from them. I think they want to use it for a parking lot, but that detail, you'll start seeing them kind of starting to come through. But the point of making an effort to do something is, Alderman Hanauer is exactly correct.
But we would need something in writing, so if you'd check, make sure they submitted that'd be great.
And we will have to, because it is transferring property owned by the city, we have to do it by ordinance. So there would be an ordinance coming forward with each of those.
Yes, sir. Alderman Turner?
I have several questions, and I had the same question/concern that Alderman Hanauer had about the lots. That's something that we've been talking about for probably a couple of years. And we always talk about what we plan to do, but we never continue on and actually implement the plan. So when the And I appreciate the fact that those two businesses that you talked about are coming through, and it seems like that's getting done. But for, I know especially for like wards 2, 3, and 4, there are an abundance of those that have been demos, and you can't really build on them because they're too small. And I know that the mayor is looking at doing something like in the Neighborhood of Hope with, where there are a number of lots that are grouped together where you could actually build a neighborhood or do something. But I would really like for us to move expeditiously to bring an ordinance forward that would deal with those single lots that are just interspersed within neighborhoods, that we can, move on it, because people have called and they keep getting the same answer. We're looking at how we're going to deal with it, but we're not there yet. So if I could make an ask, is when you bring forward the ordinance for the Owls House and the other Springfield Clinic, if you could bring forth a companion ordinance that would deal with those individual lots that are just, kind of interspersed within neighborhoods. And you're right. I mean, it helps to, do something about beautifying the block, but it also takes some of the burden off of the city, so you don't have to mow and you don't have to do all of that, and I don't have to get calls because it's not mowed.
Where's Alice?
Double win.
So that would be really, really good if you could do that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And then, I'm not done. I said I had several. That's one. Okay, the next one is, and this may be a question for Public Works, but I'm just asking it now since it was brought up in your presentation. How are demos prioritized?
That is an excellent question, because one of the things that happened last year, in the last 3 or 4 months, the issue about the budget. And so literally, the Public Works Department, and I think one of the engineers coordinated where they went through and prioritized. Mayor asked, we asked, could you please prioritize the list? And they submitted a list to us of the ones that they would say need absolutely to be done. And so beyond that list of 30, which we have and is being acted on, there are more that have been referred, but we are not able to address them. But they went through. That was a request the mayor made to Mark, and they did generate a list back to us, because we don't decide, as the attorneys, we're the inspectors will go through and decide which is worse, and we do have a list 1 to 30, what is the worst categories.
Okay, and the reason why I ask is because there are several that are extremely, extremely bad, which almost look like that they're dangerous, but they're also on major thoroughfares. So when people are coming into the city, that's kind of the first thing that they see, which is not a good look. I know there's one particular on Cook, and then there are a couple on South Grand. That's why I was asking.
I can forward the list to you if you'd like to see it.
Okay, that'd be great. The other thing, back in my former life when I was on the county board, we did a partnership with the Operating Engineers Union, so that they did some demos in my county board district with trainees. They were supervised trainees, so it was like free demo. So I was wondering is that something that we might be able to look into?
I was going to say, I think that a couple of the unions, I think, have done some demos that were appropriate to do using that methodology. The one that springs out of me, and I can be correct on this, but it was just down from the Dana Thomas House. Mayor, do you recall where there was that large structure, and rather than the city doing it, the union came and did it? There may have been one other, but I would say there's not a pattern, a program of doing it, but it's happened at least a couple of times, I think, last year.
Yeah. So
Dana Thomas House Foundation owned the property, so I guess the question is, can we set up program where the city would be the benefactor.
We can check into that.
Okay, that would be great, because it was really beneficial to the county when we did that. They had, their trainees that need those hours, and it was supervised, and it worked really well. And then,
May I add on this? Presently, city crews do that, but they're also unionized.
yeah.
Public Works. Okay.
Yes, I don't want to do anything to disturb the unions, with or without a check. Then my next one is, Juan, I remember there was a community relations advocate that was housed in your office maybe twice a week for the railroad relocation. Is that person still there?
No, the person's not there anymore. But they come once in a while and they have meetings.
Okay. But so your staff now is just answering those questions?
Yeah, if I get any emails, phone calls, I work with Hanson Engineering, and they gave me a list of the most asked questions, and Julie and I, a couple months ago, we got a list of the questions they might ask. And then if there's something that I don't have the knowledge or something, I will contact Hanson Engineering, and I will reply to the citizen.
Okay, great. So Julia, I signed up for the text alerts, and those work really well. That's a great program. Congratulations on it. And I know that the mayor's been talking about this big hole in the budget we have to fill, so I do have to give you kudos for leading by example and bringing a budget forward that is
Well, they did it.
lower.
So thank you very much.
Yes.
They appreciate it, or we appreciate it.
Alderman Redpath?
Is your budget, Bonnie, is your budget based on the shared services proposal going through?
That is included as well.
So how much is that? How much difference will that make?
Bill could answer that. It actually flows, how's the shared services flow through to the budget? I think
Are you
that's the
talking about
question.
just the mayor's budget, Alderman? Mm-hmm. There's no shared services in the mayor's budget.
Well, the corporation council, part of that's being supplemented with shared
So you're
services.
just talking about the revenue, not the expense budget, but the revenue?
Yes. Where's the revenues coming from?
Okay, so the utility is paying approximately $250,000 in revenue for legal services out of the mayor's office, if that's what you're asking.
So without that, then the budget will be, this budget will be short?
Sure, well, the revenue, yes, the revenue will be $250,000 less than what's anticipated for corporate, which would make the deficit $250,000 more than what it is in the proposed budget.
And Corporation Council, you and I just talked about the enormous amount of fines that Walmart's being imposed on Walmart for their violations out there. Can that money, where does that money go? Does that go back to the general fund, or how's that work?
Yeah, any of the, well, I guess not up there, but any of the fines, and that would be part of the OV, that one chart that had the 308,000, any of that just goes into the corporate fund, is my understanding. In other words, it's just a source of revenue like any other source of revenue.
But the expenses couldn't be used for your budget to offset, to booster your budget. It has to go back into that fund.
I would defer to Bill, but my understanding is the budget you have before you are, for expenditures, and all that other stuff is just going into the hopper, the general hopper.
Revenue.
Okay, just asking.
And Bill can correct me, but I'm...
Well, it's general fund revenue, so it supports general fund revenue activities, including Corporation Council.
Yeah, which would be these, for example.
Okay. That's all I got.
Alderman McMenamin?
For Corporation Council. Jim, we've got, as I study the green sheets for personnel count, we've got 8 attorney positions, including your own position. Is that correct? And last year we would have had 9 positions. Is that correct?
Yeah. Presently, let's see, we have 6 attorneys on staff, including me.
Those are filled positions. I'm talking about open positions or total budgeted positions. Jim, we've got 8 this year, and we had 9 last year.
That is correct. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay.
We have 6 filled, 2 vacant, 1 we gave up.
Okay.
Yeah. And one we are in the process of trying to hire. One of the vacancies is in process where we're doing second interviews without saying names or anything.
Okay. Now, traditionally, the labor negotiation up to the point of litigation, all the pre-litigation labor negotiation was performed by the labor negotiator in human resources. And as we know, Stephanie Barton is leaving, I think effective March 1. She's done a great job, lots of expertise leaving the city. That'll be a tough position to fill. But my question is, I noticed on your slide that the slide describes for Corporation Counsel labor and contract negotiations. That's on the slide. So is there an intent to move that position that historically has been in HR over to the Corporation Counsel's office?
The position of the labor relations, just a little, may I give you just a minute of history? The concept of there being kind of a team with a...
Well, if you would just answer my question, because I know the history too, I know that. But if you just answer the question, is the intention to move that position, the supervisory aspect of that position from HR to the legal counsel office?
And it had, yes. And
Okay.
it has been that way actually since Mayor Langfelder took office, because I have directly, because of, with Stephanie, who's done a fine job, is an attorney. And so we were trying to broaden what we were, because we're on such a, I don't want to get...
Well, you don't have to get into all that. I'm just trying to get some factual questions asked and answered. So the next factual question is, does your budget as presented today include a budgeted position for what was historically the HR labor negotiation position?
No.
Okay. Very well. Well, I hope that we can accomplish all the work that's to be done in the legal division. If we're short, one position reduced from what we had last year. I know there's been concerns about the ordinances getting completed, and the administrative court work is extremely important to the neighborhoods. And the demolition work and getting orders of demolition, that's extremely important. So I hope this is a carefully thought out budgeting move here. And that's just a comment.
Anyone else? Director McCarty?
I'm sorry, Alderman Redpath, I forgot to mention, too, that we do have that $80,000 in there as well as revenue for the mayor and Bonnie's time working on utility matters.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that,
That's not what you said last week, Mayor.
That's the percentage, pro rata share. I think that's what you call it.
25%. With that, we thank you for your presentation.